Welcome back into the Fourth Man Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony, as always, and thank you for tuning in to another episode. We're heading into the season finale of the regular season, and we got a special guest with us today, someone who's been with the league since the inaugural season, assistant coach for 3's company, Mark Gray. Mark, appreciate the time, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Always been a fan. Watched the show since day one, man. Big fan of what you're doing, and that's awesome, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, appreciate it. I've always appreciated your support as well. And, and really your perspective of the league, because you've been with the league for so long and has seen the ups, the downs, and how much this league has really changed leading up to the 2024 season. I want to take it back to the beginning, though, and how you even got started with this league. Because when I think of you, I think of just 3's company. I think of someone who's been even there before Coach Coop was there, almost in a sense. How did you get started with the league, and how did you ultimately end up becoming the assistant coach of 3's company?
Well, yeah, since I was there at the very first combine that they ever had out in Las Vegas with DeMar Johnson. Season one, the original captain of 3's company was Allen Iverson. And he was a unique. Every team had a captain and a coach and a co-captain. Mm-hmm. We were the only team that had Allen Iverson was both the coach and the captain. So you can use that for your BIG3 trivia one day. He's the only person that's ever been a coach, and it was the original coach and captain of the team. So that was Iverson, and then DeMar Johnson was the co-captain. As the season went on, Iverson, had a lot of things going on, so he would miss a game here and there, whatever the case may be, and then ultimately didn't return for season two just because the schedule didn't permit it. And a lot fell on DeMar Johnson. He was he was the only person now. If Iverson wasn't around, he would be the captain, the co-captain, and the coach. You know what I mean? So it was a lot on DJ's plate. So me and DJ are good friends. He had respect for my basketball, knowledge, and so I just helped him out. Really kind of just a wall to bounce things off of. We talk. What are you thinking? What are you thinking, Mark? What do you see? Just kind of that type of thing. Nothing more, nothing less of it. And that kind of just opened the door to get my foot in there. And really, most of season one, just as a fan / part of the team in a fan capacity per se. I love that team. Good friends with all of those guys. And from there, transitioned into season two, and then Michael Cooper entered the door. And I remember we were the very first day practice, DJ introduced me to Michael Cooper, and he said, "Hey, Coop, this is Mark. He pretty much comes with us to all the games. He's on the team. He's in the locker room. He's there with us." And and Coop, from that very first day on, Coop didn't know me from a can of paint. Coop said, "Hey, Mark, let me talk to you for a second." And Coop didn't know anything about the league, and he said, "Tell me about this. Tell me about that. How does this work? Tell me about this rule. Tell me about that rule." And I sat there and I talked to Coop. We sat down. We talked for about 20 minutes. We rode over in the bus. We got to the arena, and Coop would just ask me questions, trying to fill out the league. How does this work? How does that work? And we went to the arena, and I was sitting down in the front row right next to it. And Coop said, "Mark, what you doing over there? Come sit down over here." And then it started sitting. I sat at the end of the bench, and for about halfway through, just sat at the end of the bench, and then by the end, Coop was like, "No, come sit down here next to me." And from there on, it was just open door thing like that. And Coop just relied on me heavily. And next thing I knew, it was writing scout reports and watching video, and really sealed the deal would be Drew Gooden. Great dude. He was a co-captain season two, and while at that point it was pretty informal and just kind of a everybody liked me sort of thing, Drew Gooden was the first one to step up and say, at one of the meetings, like, "Yo, Mark is part of this team. We make sure we take care of him. And, Mark, I want you to do this. Mark, I want you to do that." Drew was here in the off season, worked out with Drew in the off season. And from there, the rest is history.
Man, that's wild. I was about to ask, how has your role evolved from being the guy who was asked to come join the bench to now where you're, like you said, writing scouting reports and looks like doing a little bit of film review and stuff, but almost like Drew kind of certified you as like, "Hey, you're part of the coaching staff here." And yeah.
Drew did that, absolutely. And Drew showed me how to write a scouting report. and then went from there. And it's, Drew just really encouraged me all the way along the way, and always supported me and never excluded me from anything. That was Drew's main thing, is they never excluded me from anything. For I'm always standing off to the side, not wanting to just assert myself. But if we're taking a team picture, Drew says, hold on, Mark, get in here. Us a team meeting, hold on, Mark, get in here. If people would, have a group chat, if it was, you put together a group chat with just the coaches or the captains, Drew's always going to be the one to add me into it. Like, hold on, let's add Mark in here. And then Coop just became more and more, what's the word I would say? Like, he depended on me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he depended on me and depended on that role. Then as the teams changed, the role kind of changed a little bit. And 1 year finally, DJ was no longer the captain, and so I came in through DJ, was good friends with DJ. I mean, DJ's a brother to me, and me and Drew Gooden became really good friends at that point. And none of them were coming back, and they handed it over to Mario Chalmers, who I worked with 1 year, but it was only it was the COVID year, so I think we played like 4 games together, and then they canceled the season or whatever. Not so I didn't work that long per se with Mario, but I remember I got a text message at like noon saying that DJ wasn't going to be the captain anymore, and by 12:15, Mario had reached out to me on Instagram and was like, "Yeah, I was trying to find your number, I couldn't find it." And he was like, "What you doing next year?" And I was like, "Well, I heard DJ not coming back." And he said, "Are you coming back?" I said, "Well, that's on you. You the captain." And he said, "Nah, like, I need you. You know what I mean? I need you." And he was like, "I want you there with everything you did. I want you to keep doing that, and I just need you there." And I said, "No problem." And that was like really cool. You know what I'm saying?
Man,
for Mario,
yeah, for sure.
To reach out for Mario Chalmers, 2-time NBA champion, and obviously he's played with the likes of his resume, who he's played with and who he's worked with, and he cared enough to reach out to me and say, "I want you there." It wasn't a matter of like, "Oh, I just showed up." No, Mario reached out to me and said, "I want you there," and the rest has been history.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible, and I think for you, I mean, that's a testament to yourself, just establishing your credibility and your worth to that team and how much you're valued on that. I mean, you're part of a group that you did in some capacity help that team reach the 2018 BIG3 finals. You're someone that's helped kind of restructure this roster, I'm sure, with the different scouting reports and maybe bringing different people in and just kind of giving your own opinion. So I think that's a testament to you. I would love to know though, like, because in your role, I mean, I think early on you're kind of giving DJ and Drew different ideas and different looks of what you're seeing, but now it's a whole different team and still an experienced group of guys, obviously with your captains, Rio, Bees, and then Reggie Evans, who's been in this league for a long time, but also a couple new guys as well. Nas is coming up, and he's one of the youngest guys in the league. And then Sean Williams, who's an experienced player, but also someone that's new to the league. How do you kind of bounce between talking to experienced players in comparison to maybe talking to some of the newer guys and just kind of giving them maybe tips and tricks when they're approaching the game?
There's such a learning curve to the BIG3 because it's not like anything you've ever done before. Nas is what's different with Nas is that normally I have to work with people and try to break them in and teach them the rules and the ropes of 5-on-5, coming from 5-on-5 basketball to 3-on-3. Nas is the first person that ever really coming from 1-on-1 basketball to 3-on-3 basketball. So it's a little bit different, you know what I mean? And teaching, or I don't want to say teaching, but working and talking and coaching Nas through those sort of things. But he's such a talented player, you know what I mean, that it's easy. It's just trying to incorporate 1-on-1 basketball and your 1-on-1 skill set to our game, you know what I mean, and the rules and the strategy. Most people come in from the outside and they're trying to figure things out. And a lot of times, normally what you'll have is, especially on our team, we have Mike and Mario been playing together in this league for a long time. And not only in this league, they've obviously played together in the NBA. Me, Mike, and Mario are pretty much our 3's company in terms of it's not just basketball. We spend the majority of our personal
time
life together,
right.
What the case may be. So we're a tight-knit group in that right there. So it becomes after we come out of this draft, we're bringing everybody together into our circle. You know what I mean? This year was real easy in terms of Nas and Reggie. Both are in Tampa. and me, Mike, and Mario are pretty heavy in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. So we're able to just incorporate and put together and do like a mini camp and just spend a lot of time together. And that helps a lot on the court, just having the personal relationships and whatever the case may be. You get a guy like Sean. Sean's just such a unique and special defensive player. So he really was easy to put in there. He has a great shot blocking ability. And he also has a great ability to move his feet. And he's just a great defender. And he's not really looking to score. So it's easy to incorporate him. Nas, coming from a different background, it was and still is a work in progress, but very happy with it. And it's definitely that we got.
Yeah. And I would say, well, I guess I want to ask this, how much between you, Rio, Bees, and maybe even Michael Cooper, like how often throughout a really long offseason are you guys just talking about potentially different people that could fit this team? Because, you think about it, I've been kind of on record saying like this may be the most complete teams in terms of what you've been able to assemble, right? Like you got guys that can get buckets, rebounders. Sean Williams is, I think, an underrated person for Defensive Player of the Year. Nas is probably leading the Rookie of the Year candidacy right now. I mean, how much did you have these conversations early in the offseason to try to kind of construct this roster that you have today?
If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. From the second we lost last year, again, I can't speak on the dynamics of the other teams, but me, Mike, and Mario talk every day. Okay, pretty much year round, all day, every day. We see each other several times a year. So we talk all the time. And from the second we lost last year, Mike was like, I want this, I want that, I want this. Mario saying, we need this, we need that, we need this. And I'm in there saying, if it's going to be this, it's going to be that. We need this, we need that. And so, as soon as the season's over, we're already talking about what we want for next year. Cooper on the same thing. At the season end, hey, Mark, next year we're going to have to make sure we do this. Next year we're going to have to do that. Then I don't talk, Coop as much per se during the off season, but if me, Mike, and Mario are together and in the same room or on the same phone and the conversation is more than 30 minutes, BIG3 is going to come up. You know what I mean? And we have to do this and you have to do that. Just in talking. As we get closer, probably about February or so, when people start calling, how it goes is, people find out they know that Rio's the captain. So former NBA players are calling him and vice versa. And he's calling, and Mike too, hey, I'm in the gym with so-and-so. Hey, what you think that would look? How do you think that would look? And we'll discuss it. We actually ended up having a co-captain spot. So really, all throughout the time, it's insert this player name here. Mike might run into a guy at the gym in Miami. Mario might run into a guy at a camp that he's doing in LA. Hey, I talked to so-and-so and they were interested. And we talk and we discuss how would that fit? Would you prefer this guy with that guy, this guy and that guy? And there's normally some pretty big names, because people are testing to see what the BIG3 is like. And, so we're always talking about it. We're literally always talking about it.
That's pretty wild. And it just kind of shows the will to win, right? For Rio, who's done it at every level except this one so far. Yourself, who's been to a championship game for Bees, who maybe his outlook's a little bit different than it was coming into the league originally. But, and what's crazy too is for you've seen early on in the BIG3 where maybe people didn't take it as seriously. Like Trilogy will forever be etched in history for being the only undefeated team. But, it was a different dynamic back then. Like outside of just like the competitiveness and will to win from pretty much every team in this league at this point, and maybe over the past few years, what do you feel like have been the biggest just changes and evolution of this league as a whole?
The league is, I had this conversation last night or this weekend, at dinner, and I was talking to Skylar Brain. He's like one of my favorite people to talk to on a week-to-week basis. And he's been there since day one. He's a day one guy. And Skylar Brain is a typical guy, part of season one. Season one was a bunch of very big name and well-established NBA players. That resume has, you're talking about NBA who's who of my generation, Kenyon Martin and Jermaine O'Neal, you know what I mean? Yeah. Allen Iverson, Mike Bibby, Ricky Davis, the list goes on and on. of Chauncey Billups, Steven Jackson, all very big names and very good basketball players in their time. Also, all those guys were done playing basketball.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So season one was more like, hey, here's a collection of guys that were great in their time, but they don't currently actively still playing basketball, right? And so we kind of went from that to, season two, same thing. We added season two, I think was the biggest jump. I mean, you added Baron Davis, Amari Stoudemire, Drew Gooden, Ron Artest, Nate Robinson. I mean, it was so many names, and it was awesome to see those guys. But those guys weren't actively still playing. So now we've gotten to the point. So that say all that to say, the first half of the Big Three, let's say, existence. Excuse me. The first half of the Big Three existence was guys that were really great at basketball in their day, and they're just coming together and playing basketball on the weekends. Mm-hmm. Now that being said, no mistake about it. All those dudes are super competitive, right? None of those guys got to where they are in life without being competitive. So those games were very competitive. But there were also guys in their mid-40s who only play basketball on the weekends. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was super competitive. We've now got to the point where Nas plays basketball 3 times a day. You know what I mean? Frank Nitti plays basketball every single day. Justin Detman, he plays basketball every single day. Michael Beasley plays basketball every single day. That's where we're at now in this league, is that you got guys that are playing basketball. Guys like Kevin Murphy, he's coming in from overseas. A lot of these guys, Glenn Rice is playing overseas. These guys are playing overseas. When the season ends, they're coming straight here. So these guys are at peak in their game. You know what I mean? These guys are in shape. They're active. And you're getting the same you might not be getting the same name power, but make no mistake about it, all these guys are very much active.
Yeah. And all these guys are doing well in the leagues they play in.
Those days of just like, I chill at home Monday through Friday, and then I show up and play on Saturday. I think that's done in the Big Three. I don't think we can do that anymore. It's not, if you're not actively currently playing basketball every day, it shows. We've kind of gotten to the point that this year more than ever, I think it's showing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's a good point too, is just, I shouldn't say that the first few years weren't competitive. It was just guys that weren't playing every day. It was hard to keep your body ready to go for each weekend at that age after a lot of wear and tear. Whereas now, like you said, everyone's super active, coming off really good seasons in whatever league they're playing, or playing at a high level, wherever the case may be. So it just goes to show, I mean, I don't want to call out people specifically, but there's a couple guys in this league that are a little bit older that maybe don't play every day, that you can definitely tell that it weighs on them a little bit more. So I just like your perspective from it, because you've seen that, and maybe so like early on, maybe you can attest to this. It was just about establishing the name of the Big Three, and how do you do that? Establishing it with big names, with the Chauncey Billups, the Rashard Lewis's, Allen Iversons of the world. So maybe
I think you have to
was
do
more of that.
Yeah, I think you have to do that. And I like the idea. One of the great thing about the Big Three, and I hope they do more of, is having those big names around. For sure. I love seeing Mike Beasley every week at there doing the shooting against the fans, and I'd like to see Kenyon Martin at the games. I like seeing Steven Jackson around. Like a lot of these guys that are season one guys, you'd like to see them around more. Last week we were in Cincinnati. I would have loved to see DJ there.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I think that would have been awesome. I think it would have been awesome to bring out DJ, bring out Ruben Patterson. You know what I mean? Bring out a lot of these guys that went to Cincinnati. Because their names are what the league was built on. Was built off of their names, and they're big names, and there are a lot of great dudes in there that done a lot of great things and have a lot of great basketball resumes. You know what I mean? So you absolutely need their name and their star power, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think you need to continue to have that star power, even if it's whatever guys are playing toward the end of their career. Like, still have a few of those guys that can still play at a high level. But like you said, I think it would have been dope to see someone like, which I don't know if this has been expressed enough, but James White just being a little bit more celebrated in this, where he played college at. I wasn't actually at the game, but it doesn't feel like it's being talked about a ton this season, this kind of being his final year. Maybe one of the guys that go down in the first class, if there is a Big Three Hall of Fame one day, maybe him being one of those first guys. I understand that he's been coaching a lot. He's been out and missed a lot of games, so it hasn't necessarily felt like he's been here all season, but at the end of the day, he's made it. He's on a team that's made it through all 8 weeks. I feel like he should be more celebrated, and I just don't know if he's been celebrated enough. throughout the season.
The season isn't over. I believe this week will be his last game in the Big Three. I'm not sure if they did anything while I was in the back in Cincinnati, so I don't want to speak on it. I didn't see anything. I fully agree, and I hope that the Big Three has something for him. Flight was an original season 1, game 1 dude. He's won 3 championships in this league. He's the only person who's done 3 championships in this league, and he's been awesome. He's been awesome for the league. He's awesome, and he's moving on, and he's coaching with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I hope the league does something for him. Great dude.
Yeah, for sure. I segued a little bit going to the league just because I was hearing from you the competitiveness. So going kind of back to your team, as I've mentioned a couple of times already, you've been part of a team that's already made a Big Three finals in 2018 and the second season. It was a crazy run. Obviously, a lot of that was, the biggest catalyst of that was probably Andre Emmett and just the supernova run that he went on. I mean, Baron Davis was Baron Davis was going crazy before he got injured. That was a crazy 1-2 duo. But Andre Emmett really being able to kind of take over and carry that team, a lot of that what that team was doing into the finals was pretty wild. How much of when you're talking about the team you currently have today, are you trying to emulate that team from 2018 that was so successful? Or do you try to go a different strategy because of how much the league has changed?
Before we start, let me let you see that right there. There's Andre Emmett's jersey. So he's at forever here in the what we call the 3's Company Hall of Fame over here. Andre Emmett very much lives on in 3's Company.
For sure.
I said it in an interview earlier, 2 years ago, in Mike's first year. Andre Emmett, so much of our team that year was built around Andre Emmett, and he went on a run, 3 Player of the Week, like maybe 3 out of 4 weeks or something.
It was a wild time
every week. Yeah, and he was awesome, and we lost that. And like I said, we lost Andre Emmett, who I felt was arguably the best scorer in the league, top 3 scorers in the league. Every week he was good for 20 to 25 points. And for a year or two, we kind of were missing that. You just don't replace that. And then we got Michael Beasley, who, in my opinion, is the greatest scorer to ever come to the Big Three. And I mentioned him as one of the greatest scorers to ever walk the planet. Okay, if we're talking about scoring basketball, I got Michael Beasley as one of the best to ever walk the planet in terms of scoring. Big Three, NBA, any league you could think of. You know what I mean? I think he's as good as it gets scoring. After that, it was around tweaking around that, getting pieces. And Mario is a great leader. Mario's a champion on every single level there is, high school, college, and the NBA. Mario gets so much disrespect and downplaying and it's the double-edged sword of playing with LeBron, per se. There's a lot of benefit that comes from LeBron, obviously. Without, you play with LeBron, you're going to be in 4 championships in 4 years or whatever the case may be. But then you don't think you get all the credit you deserve for what you do. And we all know LeBron gets whatever he wants, right? He gets whatever players he wants. It's not a coincidence that LeBron had Mario Chalmers as his point guard. If he wanted another point guard, he'd have got another point guard.
For sure.
Mario was there for a reason. We all see him getting yelled at all the time, and that's fine. Part of the thing is, what? Now that I know Mario as well as I know Mario, there's a big joke, and the thing is, people talk about Mario. Oh, everybody yell LeBron and Wade. All they do is yell at Mario. That's actually a skill that Mario has in terms of Mario is able to be the bigger person and just soak it in and do his best for the team. You know what I mean? And think about how many point guards, LeBron could have been yelling and screaming like that, and then they've blown up, and then there's a problem.
For sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mario took all that in. You yell, you scream at him. He stands his ground, boom, and then he goes out and hits a big shot. That's the talent. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of people that can take a criticism from a LeBron and D Wade and then go out there and still perform their job. And Mario did that. And we bring him into this team, and that leadership trickles over, carries over. You know what I mean? And he's been that leader for us for the last 3 years. You know what I mean? And he's done a great job with it. And, we have Mike, and he does a great job of managing Mike and amongst other emotions, and just, for lack of a better word, characters that have come through this 3's Company locker room. You know what I mean? But he's done a great job with it. And so, ever since then, it's just kind of been picking and adding pieces to pretty much go around Mike, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the same scenario, right, in 2018 with Baron Davis and Andre Emmett, trying to fit guys around them. Obviously, DJ's kind of the leader that maybe Rio is now, and just having a few other pieces there. And let's see, you had Max Seal there, so you kind of have your. I don't want to say him and Sean Williams have the same game, but I just see similarities at times between the two teams, and maybe that's why you guys are so successful. And at the same time, too, I feel like Beasley has really embraced this league. Like I just feel like since the first time he played in 2022 against Bivouac, there's just like a different aura and perspective. It looks like, at least from an outside perspective, on how he's approaching things and how engaged he is, involved it is, and he's trying to get his teammates to make sure they're in the right spots and things like that. And I just feel like this year especially, it just feels a little bit different to where you guys are like really trying to make sure that you make it to that championship game and then see what happens from there.
A guy like, people don't know this, but I've been in, I know this because I'm in the draft rooms. Reggie Evans and probably Big Baby, they've got more players drafted than anybody in this league. And what I mean is that every single team, when you go into the draft room, you say, we have to get a guy who can bang with Reggie, right? So that's why you end up with a Jason Maxiell or Corsley Edwards. A lot of these big body guys, hey man, when you put together this team, we watched early in these years, we watched Reggie do 20 and 10, 20 and just bully people, literally just bully people. So if you were putting together a team, a champ that you expect to go anywhere and do anything, you had to make sure that you had somebody that was big enough and strong enough to guard Reggie and to guard Big Baby. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there was a stretch in the 2000s where teams were drafting everybody 7 foot, 300 pounds, because you knew someday you're going to run into Shaq. You know what I mean? So in our version of 3-on-3, it was, somebody gonna have to guard Reggie. So we would never take the lead. We wouldn't take the floor. We drafted Juju. You know what I mean? Out of Kentucky. That was our guy. Julian Wright. You just always want to make sure that you had somebody who could bang with Reggie. So when the opportunity came to get Reggie, it was a no-brainer. So now we don't have to worry about somebody to deal with Reggie because we actually got Reggie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Reggie, the power team winning with like the kind of the two big lineup when they had Birdman and Big Baby. I mean, like that felt like it's a copycat league in whatever professional sports league you're playing in. So it felt like that was what they were trying to emulate. And we've seen that over the years. There's some kind of big that's involved, like very much involved in the process in order to win some games. So I like the way this team is constructed. That being said, like obviously it's been kind of a weird couple of weeks, the past 2 weeks for you guys. First off, great start. There's a good chance that you guys should have been 5-0 heading into week 6. It was a very controversial call, if most people remember, between the Bivouac game and how many timeouts you had and if they were actually doing a good job keeping count of that or not. But, water under the bridge, whatever the case may be. You guys past 2 weeks have been weird because you got a win based off a forfeit. And then last week didn't necessarily, maybe came out a little rusty or just didn't play the same rotations. Can you talk a little bit about last week and kind of how I know you talked a little bit before we actually started recording, but just talk a little bit about last week and what you saw and maybe why the rotations were just a little bit different. I mean, we didn't see Nas or Sean play in the second half, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
For starters, I think it was we came out flat. You know what I mean? We came out flat. Like you said, Portland really took a toll on our team. That was obviously an unfortunate situation that had nothing to do with anybody other than, I guess you call for like, it was a natural disaster, a computer disaster, really. You know what I mean? It shut things down. Mike was supposed to be in Portland. His original flight was to leave. We played on Saturday. Mike was supposed to leave on Saturday at midnight. Okay. Mike didn't get home until Wednesday at 8 p.m. Okay. So That kind of threw off Mike. He likes to work out in the gym on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He didn't get a chance to work out any of those days. Mario did. It almost seemed like they were letting 3's company player out a day. You know what I mean? Mario didn't get home. I didn't get home until Monday. Mario didn't get home until Tuesday. So, Nas was delayed. I want to say 24, maybe even a little bit more than that himself. So that kind of took a toll on us, threw everybody's week off. And then after that, I'm not going to lie, I feel like seeing three-headed monster score 18 points the week before, I think kind of allowed all of us as a team to take the foot off the gas when you can never do. You know what I mean? And the combination of, I'm sure, with them scoring 18 points last week, we took it lightly. And with them scoring 18 points a game, 18 points the week before, I'm sure they came in determined to let them know that that's not who we are. And they did. They let us know that that's not who they are. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and when you ask about the rotations, it's probably the first time this whole year we've been down more than 4 points. I'd have to check the stats. We've been in control of every game. The one that we lost, we were first to 40. I think every game we've been to the first to 40. And this game, we went up 36-34, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So in terms of the lineups, everything is a work in progress because there's different situations. So this is the first time we've been down double digits. We were down 10 points at the half. You know what I mean? So we're trying to figure it out. It was no necessarily reason per se that Nas and Sean didn't play in the second half. It was kind of just the way the game went, the game flow. And once we reached a certain point, Coop looked at me and said, what do you want to do? And at that point, 42-46 or something like that. I mean, it can't just throw Nas and Sean in there now. It's almost like at that point, these three made the bed. We're gonna let them lay in and win or lose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever it's going to be. I don't want to. You don't want to throw Sean and Nas into the mix with 2 points left to score. That's not fair to them, and that's not fair to the people on the floor. You know what I mean? So
no doubt.
that's just kind of how it went. But it's no reflection of anything different that we plan to do. Not make no mistake about it. In order for us to win a championship, we need Nas's offense, and we very much need Sean's defense.
Yeah, no doubt. No, that's good context too, because I think, with three-headed monsters, they scored 18 last week. The Teague brothers show up 2 hours before the game. Moss and Greg Monroe don't even make the game. They got a guy who they just released back on the team. That's got to be just a weird situation just all around. So, they put up 18. But, for you guys, you're just looking at the box scores or looking at maybe the scores, not really thinking too much of it. So, in a similar way, for you guys are all off schedule, coming to the game. Basically what I'm getting at, doesn't seem like this is like what we're going to see on a weekly basis. I think we're behind the internal or IT outage that we were facing all year. And so now you guys head into week 8. You guys are pretty much control your own destiny at this point with the 5 wins. Have a chance to probably lock up the 3 spot, maybe a higher spot with a win. But you got to do so with going through the defending champions who are coming off their own loss and another team looking for vengeance. What do you think about this game? I mean, this is probably the game of the week. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks. I was thinking just in terms of who wins, it's probably just going to be who scores, But from you as a coach and looking in a little bit more deeply, what's kind of your just high-level thought process? I don't have to get into the nitty-gritty or any of your game plans going into it.
So for the last probably every time I see Nick Young every week, he's walking around as a champion as he should be. And every week they're 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. Every time I see Nick Young in the hotel or whatever the case may be, great guy. I always say to him, man, who's like, yo, you guys win again? He'll say, yeah. And I say, hey, when's the last time you guys lost? And he'd be like, man, get out of here, Mark. Get out of here, Mark. No, when's the last time you lost to us? Oh, that's the last game you lost to us. It was close. I thought it wasn't even close. Oh, that's crazy. And then he just kind of be like, man, nah, I can't wait to play you. I can't wait to play you. So, he knows. They know that we're the last time that they lost because I make sure I remind them every single time I see them. Now, that being said, they just lost the Big Whack. So I kind of wanted us to be I was hoping that the next time we saw them, I could remind them, you know what I mean? But now we're no longer the last team that beat them. They just lost a tough game last week. And you never want to face a team after they that good that just lost. The likelihood of them losing 2 games in a row, not really, not that high. Their head is going to be, they're fully focused. And the good thing about that is, guess what? We just lost 2. So one thing you always know, teams start to lose focus when you start winning a lot of games in a row. We just won 3 or 4 games in a row, and maybe our focus wasn't where it's supposed to be. They just won 6 games in a row, and maybe their focus wasn't where it was supposed to be. But guess what? We're both coming off a loss now, so we're focused. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me and Mario were up at 8 o'clock this morning. Me and Mike were up at 8 o'clock this morning. Mario didn't join us until a little bit later, so I'll tell you something about that. But, me and Mike were up at 8 o'clock this morning. We were talking. Coop's on the West Coast, and Coop called me at, it was 11 o'clock my time, so that's pretty much 8 o'clock his time. And hey, Mark, you got a second? Let's talk. Let's talk about matchups. So all that to say, they fully have our attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I would think, I've never been in their locker room, so I don't know anything. Nick Young walks around all damn day with the clipboard. I don't know if you see that all game long. He just walks around with the clipboard. He's just everywhere. I don't know. There's no proof that he actually writes anything on the clipboard, but he definitely just walks around with the clipboard. So I'm guessing he might have the clipboard right now on him. So, hey Nick, if you see this, write down on the clipboard.
I might have to make sure he sees this. So
yeah. All you do is you just walk around that clipboard and smile. It's like the smile's attached to his face and the clipboard attached to his hand. He just walks around with the clipboard. But I'm sure they just as locked in as we are, and I think it is going to be a great game. They just played a great game. You know what I mean? Yeah. They just came off of. I guess you can make a case for probably game of the year. That Bivouacs versus Enemies as game of the year, and I don't expect this week to be any different.
Nah, me either. I mean,
I don't expect that this week to be. They got a great team, and they got two great guards over there. You can make a case that's, maybe outside the Pargos, and I like Jason Richardson and Murph, but those are two guards that are walking buckets, in Elijah Stewart and Jordan Crawford. Those are two great guards. And then, Isaiah Austin is essentially a 7'1" guard. You know what I mean? Like he's a guard at 7 foot. And then, you bring Quincy Miller off the bench at 6'10", who's shooting. And then Chris Miller?
Chris Allen.
Chris Allen, sorry. Mm-hmm. Chris Allen, who, new to the league this year, but he's a bucket. You know what I mean? So they're loaded.
Yeah.
We are too. So it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. Mike's also got 2 30-point games in a row in his last 2 outings. So not to say that's the game plan of success or anything, but that's always just fun to see that. It almost feels like he's heating up at the right time. If he wasn't already, I feel like he's always kind of just hot from making shots, but like it feels like he's heating up at the right time. All that being said, do you feel like Enemies were exposed at all, or any weak spots that you have maybe seen after their loss to Bivouac? I feel like I may have, I don't want to say I've seen a couple, but just noticed something a little bit more. It seemed like Bivouac got more offensive boards and maybe just had a little bit more hustle and a close win. But is there anything you see as a coach or just doing some like scouting?
I don't want to say, because if I was to say Enemies got exposed last week by Bivouac, that would mean we got exposed last week by Three-Headed Monsters.
Fair enough.
Here's what I can tell you: the same team that you saw this past week against Three-Headed Monsters, we're not going to be that team this Sunday. So I'd be a fool to think what I saw them getting out rebounded by Bivouacs or whatever the case may be. I'd be a fool to think that I'm going to see the same team as that. I'm going to sit down and watch the film, and I'm sure somebody over there is going to sit down and watch the film. You know what I mean? We have a film of a game that we played them last year. It's available for us to watch. It's available for them to watch. There's going to be adjustments that's going to be made. Bivouacs is a hard team. They play really, 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 really hard. Yeah. They out-rebounded us 10 offensive rebounds to 2. So I'm not going to say that we, anybody got exposed or whatever the case may be. Here's what I know: if you don't box out and play hard, Bivouacs is going to get the rebounds. And we're just 2 teams that learned that firsthand. That's all that boils down.
Fair enough. Let's. I don't want to. I'm trying to word this right, because I never want to assume, and I'm sure you don't want to assume that you have the 3rd spot locked up. But I'm more so looking at the rest of the league and I want to get your perspective, because I know how in tune you are with the rest of the league. And when you're looking at kind of the 4th spot that seems pretty wide open with a few different teams and triplets and Tri-State and Ghost Ballers, is there any team that you think could kind of round out that playoff pack that you've been keeping an eye on or just seen kind of turn up in the past few weeks? I know you mentioned Murph and Jay Rich, but any team that you're thinking that could be that 4th and final team?
Just for full transparency, I've thought the whole time, I've always, as the season went on and we kind of started to separate ourselves a little bit, I felt like I always kept an eye on it as Bivouac's Enemies and ourselves were kind of, after we picked up that 5th win, I've been around this league long enough to know 5 wins is going to get the job done for the most part. I felt like going for those last 2 spots, it was triplets and Tri-State. And I feel like with Joe Johnston, I feel like it's triplets, no brainer. You know what I mean? If Joe Johnston is there, triplets as good as any team there is. Both of those Pargo boys shoot that ball as good as anybody in the league. And Joe, in my opinion, is the 2nd best player in the Big 3. And has been he's been the best player in the big league. He's probably had the best career in the Big 3, out of anybody. Mm-hmm. I just think Mike's better.
Fair enough.
But second best player in the league, whatever, that's fine. I don't even care if somebody calls him the best player in the league. You don't just replace Joe Johnson. Is my point.
Right.
If Triplets have Joe Johnson, I think they're hands down the best they're a top 4 team in the league. Without Joe Johnson, there's still Jeremy Pargo and his brother is a lot. I'm a big Jeff Ayers fan, and Jamario Moon is the guy that does a little bit of everything. And those are the type of guys that you win championships with. So I like triplets. I really like triplets. I think I said it before. I think Jeremy Pargo is the most underrated player in this league. If a lot of people don't know who Jeremy Pargo is, and between him and Kevin Murphy, those two dudes, people don't know who they are until you get against them. You play them, like, who's that? The guy who just had 30. You know what I mean? Like, those guys are buckets. And Gennaro can shoot right now. I think he's shooting at like 50% from 3 or something crazy like that. And his brother's shooting at like 40 something. And Jeff Ayers is like I said, a great big. I would say triplets as the fourth
okay.
seed. That would be almost with or without Joe, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I really like the way triplets gets out and big 3 transition of just getting behind the line and being able to just shoot a lot of shots from behind the arc and make a lot of those shots. And then obviously Jeremy shooting from the 4-point spot, probably more than anybody in this league, makes them really dangerous. But I just feel like everyone on that team has done a really good job shooting the ball. And then, they really rely on like someone like Jeff or Jamar to get a rebound and then find them in space as they're trying to spread the floor. So that's a dangerous team. Tri-State's pretty dangerous too. I know it looks like Jay Rich might be banged up a little bit, but if him and Murph are on the same point, like are on the same wavelength, and they're playing the way that we know that they can, they're kind of scary too. And Ghost Ballers is scary. I don't know. It should be a good week 8, and it should be a good playoff in Nashville. So I want to say good luck to you guys, and trying to close out the season and the regular season, I should say, and then trying to make a playoff spot. I'm sure it'll be a big one for you guys. Just being the first playoff spot, or the first time you made the playoffs since 2018, and the first time Rio and Beasley will get to be in the playoffs. So that'd be a huge accomplishment, I'm sure, but not the ultimate goal. The last thing I want to get your perspective on is a little bit away from the league, but as the Olympics are going on, I feel like I got to ask you this question because there's a ton of people, especially from the enemies, but co-founders of the league, coaches, players have all been saying, and even Cube himself have all been saying like, hey, guys in the big 3 could probably form a team good enough to win Olympic gold for the U.S. team. Now I know it's a different style of play. In a way, it's kind of hard to like say that because one of the coaches in the big 3 has his son playing for that team. But I would love to get your thoughts. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like? Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts around that?
Do I agree with what? That it'd be great to see our players there?
Do you think that our players, if we formed a 4-man rotation, could go and win U.S. gold? The USA gold?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There's not yeah, absolutely. There's not a doubt in my mind. I thought you was going to put me on that. So that's why I started randomly thinking. I thought you was going to put me on the spot and ask me who my 5-man team would be that I sent over there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Is there somebody named Michael Beasley or Joe Johnson that's playing in the tournament that I don't know about?
Nope. I don't think so.
I don't know who. I don't know who's in those 3-on-3 tournaments. I haven't looked at those rosters, but I'll take Joe Johnson and Michael Beasley over any of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I absolutely. I think within our league, especially if you sprinkle in 1 or 2 of the younger players, we absolutely could put together a 3-on-3 team. And I just do wonder who put together those teams and who those players are. But I have a hard time believing anybody on those teams is better than Jeremy, better than Mike, better than Joe, better than, insert a couple of, anybody over there better than Earl Clark. There's a lot of those guys that I have a hard time believing that.
Well, and here's the thing too, is that some of those guys who have been the best players in FIBA in those tournaments have played in our league, right? Like Dusan was a number 1 player, albeit later in his career. Seen Carlos Lasamanos, who was the top scorer at the 2020 Olympic gold or 2020 Olympics. He's played in our league, played well, but he wasn't the best player, I would say. So it's really interesting to see how our guys would translate over into that conversation. Dusan was actually saying in a post that I dropped recently that they would have to be competing in FIBA matches in order to qualify. But I feel like what would be great for the 3-on-3 game in general is if there was somehow a way Big 3 champion could be incorporated at least into trying out, to be on that team.
It would take now. I think we as all basketball fans have realized from the U.S. you can't just throw people out there. It doesn't work that way. So it would take, hey, we're going to come up with the 5 or 6 guys. I don't know how many they've run on a roster, probably 6, I suppose. And these 6 guys need a month or 2 of working together with the right coach. But I don't think talent would be the problem under those circumstances. It'd just be a matter of getting those guys together, playing together, getting some plays together, and getting a feel for the ball. But as long as you were to have, those names that I just named, I don't see how we couldn't.
Yeah.
I really don't see how we couldn't.
I just think it's an interesting conversation. And I love that we're kind of bringing it up. It's just, will it ever happen? I don't know. I guess it's just having conversations like this and you hope for the best.
I think one day, you have to. I'd love to know more about like who are these players and where they come from, and like who is.
Well, one of them's Jimmer. One of them's Jimmer.
Okay, right.
And then
Jimmer. Jimmer's an amazing shooter. I love Jimmer.
Then one of them's
take Michael.
Rick Barry's son.
I'll take Michael over him.
Let's see. And the other 2 guys I'm not as familiar with, but I think it's just them. They play on the circuit, the FIBA circuit. And there's been this weird relationship for a long time since Dusan tried to come over and play in the Big 3, just between FIBA and the Big 3. So I don't know. It feels like the Big 3 wants what's best for basketball. Hopefully at some point everybody else wants to do, the same and cooperate and partner and whatever the case may be. But I do find it an interesting conversation, and I'd love to see our guys, they win a championship or all-stars from the Big 3, like maybe one day compete in that, because I think we would put out the best roster. I think we have the best talent from guys who play 3-on-3 year in and year out.
Within the player pool of the Big 3, you can find whatever you want. If you're looking for a shot blocker, Larry Sanders is, he's as good as it gets. He's literally legit led the NBA in shot blocks. He can still block shots. Sean Williams can still block shots. Scorers, like I said, Michael Beasley is as good a scorer as there is anybody on the planet. Kevin Murphy, Jeremy Pargo. These guys are flat out scorers. Shooters, we got Jody Meese to shoot. We got plenty of guys that can shoot. Rebounders, you know what I mean? We got rebounders, and you got 6'10" defenders. You got big guards. We have everything that you're looking for. So it would just be a matter of assembling that one team. And I don't see how we couldn't come up with a team that would win gold.
Yeah, for sure. No, I just think it's a fun.
And then you let Mario take the last shot.
You should check out one of the games. I feel like you'll really stamp your opinion right there after you see one of those games. It's no knock to those guys. I'm just saying those guys have come over into our league and played, and it's not like they've been the best player. And that's just the point I'm making.
So I'll tell you what. I know your platform is huge and it touches up there with the Joe Rogan podcast and all of that. It touches millions. I'm gonna issue whoever wins the gold medal. I'm gonna tell you now, 3's company's trying to see you. How about that?
Hey,
whoever wins the gold medal, 3's company, we would love to see you.
Yeah, we'll bring whatever team, gold, silver, bronze, bring them into the Big 3 somehow.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you this, man. As long as the 3's company models, you fly us out, we'll pay. We'll play. You pay, we'll play. You know what I'm saying? You fly us anywhere, we'll play.
I love that. Well, you guys are getting flown out to San Antonio this week, looking to clinch a playoff spot, and wishing you guys the best of luck. I think it'll be good to see some teams that we haven't seen in a while in the playoffs back in and compete for a championship. So best of luck to you guys this week, and hopefully I'll see you in Nashville when I'm down there.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you, man. I love what you've been doing. Your support for the league is awesome, man. I don't think you get your flowers enough if anybody's ever told you, man. It's awesome what you've done, what you started. I see your logo. I've seen you, I've been a fan of the league from day one. I've been a fan of yours from day one. And I watched you start this podcast from 0 followers. And I hope it gets more followers and gets huge. And as this league takes off and it becomes everything I think it's going to be, you talk about so-and-so making the Big 3 Hall of Fame. I think you should be in the Big 3 Hall of Fame one day when we look back 20 years from now, you're the original person covering this league. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. Like when it's all said and done, one day the biggest people in sports are going to be covering this league. And you'll be able to say, nah, I was there before all of them. Like, I covered that league before all of them. And that's pretty dope, man. Like, so don't let nobody take that from you and keep doing what you do.
Man, appreciate that. Appreciate the flowers. And, likewise to you. I mean, inspirational and your journey from just being someone that's at the combine and friends with somebody to being an assistant coach. And plus, you got the best jersey game in the Big Three and maybe past the Big Three at this point. I mean, your collection is insane. I'm trying to get on your level. I got 3, so I have a long way to go. But one day at least you always have to look up to somebody to chase your goals. And so you're my inspiration in that regard. So
hey, I'm gonna send you some 3's company jerseys, man. I'm gonna get you some 3's company jerseys. Right?
That would be much appreciated. But thanks again for the time. I appreciate it, and good luck to you guys this weekend. And looking forward to the game.
All right, thank you, brother.
Mm-hmm.